What's up everyone, Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before we dive into everything, of course, a quick shout out to sponsors of the show, Ledn.io. This is where you can use your Bitcoin for a couple of different services, one of which is to secure a Canadian or US dollar loan using your Bitcoin as collateral, and the other of which is a Bitcoin savings account where you can earn interest on your Bitcoin paid out in Bitcoin. You can check out both of those services at the link down below, and if you opt to get a loan, then they will credit your account with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin. Furthermore, if you're into Bitcoin, obviously privacy should be of the utmost importance, and one of the things I use to help me out with that is NordVPN. It helps hide your IP address, it helps encrypt your browsing data, and it has the added bonus of unlocking geo-blocked content. If you click the link below, there's 75% off, ends up being about $3 a month for a 3-year package. And with that, let's dive into the news. So we've had a dip in the Bitcoin price, which has since bounced back a little bit. I guess we'll see what it's at by the time this goes up. But we seem to have hit some support around the 9,800 level. At the time of recording this, we're up back above 10,000, so around 10,130, but you know, it's fluctuating as we go. And so what are we looking at for the next little bit here? And again, as with anything, it's anybody's guess, but there's a couple things developing that are worth looking at. So we have a very tight descending channel here. You can see where we bounced off support at the 9,800 level, and we've kind of come back up above the 10,000. So we do have some upcoming resistance to get through if we do want to go up. So some of that resistance would be around 10,450, around 11,4, around 12,4, and 13,4. So obviously a lot of levels to kind of look at there, a lot to get through. And I imagine it'll take some time to do that if we do go in that direction. Now on the downside, if we are to break down below 9,800, it could suggest that we are likely to visit something in the 8,000s. So support could be at around 8,400, 7,900, and 7,400 if we do dip down that far. So yeah, some levels to look out for, but again, thank God I'm not a trader. I would not have the stomach for this. I'm happy to just sit back and ride the wave. So with that, we're going to jump into some different news here. This is an article from Bitcoinist, and they're talking about some network statistics on Bitcoin that have reached all-time highs. Obviously, they're not talking about the price right now, but rather mining hash rate, the difficulty, and the transaction output value. So what are those things? The hash rate is the cumulative amount of computing power being used to secure the network by miners. So how much computing power is backing the network, more or less. Now, the difficulty is how much computing power is required in order to successfully mine a block, or rather to successfully solve the puzzle that is required to successfully mine a block. So those are tied hand in hand. As hash rate goes up, then difficulty will also adjust to move upwards. However, the transaction output value is not necessarily tied to those. So what is the transaction output value? Essentially, how much Bitcoin is actually being sent around the network. And we just saw yesterday, for a spike that we had, that 6 million Bitcoin in transaction outputs were spent throughout the network. Now, a transaction output can be something sent to a separate wallet address, as well as the change that is in turn sent back to somebody's own address when executing that transaction. So it's not necessarily all Bitcoin was changing hands, but Bitcoin that was involved in some way in a transaction on the network. So 6 million Bitcoin in a day. So pretty impressive, lots. Now, with those metrics, also inevitably it's going to lead to questions about, given that the hash rate is going up and the difficulty is going up, how much energy is Bitcoin using? And so we've seen some of these articles, and I was very thankful to read this one and see that it was, pretty sound and it wasn't alarmist. Oddly enough, CoinDesk referenced this article, and their headline and some of the points that they made seemed much more alarmist than this article by itself out of IEA. So this very much mirrors a study, I believe it something along the lines of, it was called Bad Research, alluding to bad research in relation to Bitcoin mining and some of the alarmist ways that people present it. More or less, it falls in line with the fact that the majority of Bitcoin mining is done via renewables. So a lot of it is hydro. In fact, the green energy used to mine Bitcoin, the percentage of total green energy as far as the entire hash rate that is dedicated to Bitcoin, 74% of it is coming from renewables. So this is higher than any other industry on the planet. And it's massively above the global average, which is in the high teens. So the other thing that it pointed out here was that the amount of CO2 emissions that are created by Bitcoin it's around between 0.2 and there it is, 0.03% and 0.06% of globally energy-related CO2 emissions, which actually puts it below electric vehicles. So that, interesting. If anybody ever comes at you and says that Bitcoin is wasting energy and gonna nuke the planet, just tell them that, well, if it if it does, it looks like electric vehicles are gonna do it first. So anyways, interesting report. It also goes into kind of the hash rate, the efficiency of mining hardware, and how that has been on the rise, thus the additional increase in hash rate there. And then energy estimates. There's a lot of great data here, so I encourage you to check it out. Now, onto a different track here. Last year, there was a hack of an individual. I believe they were at Consensus, and this individual was SIM swapped on AT&T, and somebody who got access to his phone number was essentially able to steal $24 million worth of cryptocurrency. Now, I don't believe this would have been via a privately held wallet on his phone. This tends to be from, if somebody gets access to your SIM card, two-factor authentication via SMS is what they get access to. So this individual, I believe, would have had to have had a fair amount of crypto on external exchanges. So on, whatever trading exchanges, Binance, whatever he was using, he would have had to have a lot there. So he is suing AT&T for $23.8 million in compensation, as well as $200 million in punitive damages. So he lost around $24 million, or the 23.8 that was quoted there, but he wants a further $200 million just to kind of prove a point, I guess. And I mean, he does have a point, because he actually was a previous victim of a SIM swap attack and took extra measures to call AT&T and add extra layers of security to his account, because he was a high-risk individual that if somebody were to SIM swap him, there could be major consequences, as we see happened. So in this, AT&T tried to get the lawsuit completely dismissed, and the judge basically said, no, you guys are going to have to actually answer for this. We're going to go ahead with it and see what happens in court. Now, he did have questions as to exactly how the attacker was able to access his cryptocurrency. As I said, it sounds like it was likely the person was able to get onto an exchange account owned by this individual and then send out money, but it just was not clear in the initial proceedings. Now, on this, back in May, the individual who lost the money actually also won another case against the person who executed the SIM swap. So this individual was in court and he won the case. And so he was actually awarded, or the court ordered the individual that executed the SIM swap to pay the plaintiff $75.8 million in compensation as well as punitive damages. Now, where this person will get that extra, tens of millions of dollars remains to be seen. So I guess the moral of the story here is don't use SMS as a two-factor authentication. Get something like a Google Authenticator or an Authy. Instead, an app. SIM is not the best solution for 2FA when it comes to securing money. It can be social engineered, just like we saw there. Now, this is a funny article just in the fact that it kind of beckons to the fact how centralized certain cryptocurrencies can be when they have a definitive leader or figurehead. And so Tron and Justin Sun had won an auction to have lunch with Warren Buffett, and he was busy filling up seats with some notable individuals to go have lunch with him and talk about cryptocurrency. Now, Warren Buffett is a relatively outspoken critic of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and Justin Sun wanted to change that via this lunch. Now, unfortunately, he has kidney stones, and so they've had to reschedule. And in announcing that they had to reschedule the lunch, the price of Tron dropped by 13.5% as of the article, at times up to, I believe, 20%. It has since rebounded. I believe it's not down nearly as much. Let's see here, Tron. Yeah, it's only down about 5.5%. But it is hilarious how something as simple as a canceled lunch can tank the price of Tron that much. You saw people on Twitter saying things like in the vein of Anthony Pompliano, Bitcoin never cancels lunch. I just thought it was funny. Anyways, I'm not going to dive too deeply into this. And lastly, I wanted to draw attention to this. So we have this talented individual that is now writing for Bull Bitcoin. You can find him on Twitter at Dergigi, Dergigi, and he wrote a pretty awesome piece entitled "The World is Waking Up to Bitcoin" and submitted it via our Medium account. And yeah, it's a fun read, basically recapping the past week and a half, 2 weeks of all of the bullish things that have happened. A lot of it spurred on by the Facebook Libra Senate hearings, but just some great stuff about how all of a sudden the president is weighing in, members of Congress, House Representatives. We see all of these things happening in the Senate, and we have mainstream media coverage that is actually incredibly bullish and is actually understanding the value proposition of Bitcoin. So I encourage you to check out this link. I'll have it linked down below. And while you're at it, you may as well follow Gigi on Twitter there. I will link to his account as well. With that, I'm going to wrap up for the day. Thank you very much, you guys, for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit like, subscribe, and share. If you want to help the show in another way, you can hit up either the sponsors, check out Ledn or NordVPN at the links down below. And if you really like what you saw, you can drop me a Lightning Network tip at my tippin.me page. With that, I am out. I will see you guys tomorrow for your daily session.